Good evening, everyone. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I'd like to welcome everybody that's in-house and on television. First order of business is the roll call.
Mike Kincaid.
Present.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Sandra Jasanowski.
Here.
Dick Robertson is absent this evening. John Copeland.
Here.
Sierra Messenger is also absent. Robert Hawkins.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item was the swearing in of a Lebanon police officer, but that's going to be rescheduled for the meeting 2 weeks from now. We have a special presentation by John Copeland with regards to Sam Myers, who just passed away, a longtime police officer, former chief of police. John?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try and get through this as best I can. For those of you that have not heard the news, the city of Lebanon this past weekend lost a great patriot and leader of our city, former chief of police, Sam Myers. He left us way too early to enter the heavenly gates. Sam was a son, a husband, a father, a grandfather, a brother, an uncle, and to so many, a friend. To those in law enforcement, he was and will always be a brother. It's my goal at this time to meet the expectations of his best and closest friends, Hawk, AJ, Lucian, Beardy, and Tony. I remember when Sam first started with the Lebanon Police Department those many years ago, but now it feels like yesterday. Sam was a hardworking, dedicated peace officer who diligently worked his way through the ranks until finally being appointed chief of police. What a proud moment. But he was always working for the betterment of the Lebanon Police Department and the citizens of Lebanon. Sam and Joy would always be his family, whether it was hunting, cookouts, where he was a grill master, or baseball or football with the boys. He truly cherished his family. We will miss our conversations and his short stories that turned into a half an hour or longer. We'll miss Sam's infectious laugh and smile and the incredible fact that he never knew a stranger. Let me finish with this. The city of Lebanon and our community is an absolute better place because of Sammy. He will be greatly missed. May he rest in eternal peace. And God bless you, Sam Myers, from Grateful City. Please keep the Myers family in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Yeah, Sam was a great guy. I met him when he was 5 years old because I used to run around with his brother, and he was a great man and a great cook, very good cook. Okay.
If you don't. I had the honor and privilege of growing up with Sam. 4 houses separated us as we grew up together on Park Drive, and then another 3 houses down was Lucian Paris, who was a state trooper. If anybody would have ever looked and said, look at these 3 boys, they're all going to become policemen, they would have all laughed. But we all did, and we all love our job tremendously. I served 34 years with the state police. Continue today as an SRO for the Lebanon High School, and just there isn't a day that went by that I didn't talk to Sam. As we said, Sam was with the police department, and then after he left there, went up to the prosecutor's office, and I dealt with him daily. He would call me constantly, hey, I need this, hey, I need that, and I would do the same to him. And as John said, are going to miss him dearly. We had the honor and privilege of coaching together, so there's many boys and girls in this community that we coached, and they all look up to him, and again, going to be sadly missed in this community.
Thank you, Rob. Okay. Next, old business. Oh, no, we need to approve the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for April 13th?
I'll make a motion that we approve minutes from April 15th.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. Next, for old business, ordinance 2026-15. Ben?
Just a recap on this is the second reading for this ordinance. So as we discussed at the last meeting, House Bill 1001 created some additional restrictions, guidelines related to how permit fees in planning departments across Indiana need to be collected and then how they need to be spent. So it now requires that we have a non-reverting fund to collect fees. Fees cannot go back to the general fund. Ironically, we already had a non-reverting fund to do this, so we were one step ahead. However, now the fees that we collect moving forward after July 1st can only be used to cover the costs associated with reviewing and issuing permits, inspecting construction. So in essence, for our department, the cost associated with that is our time. So really moving forward, we can only use the fees collected to pay salaries in the planning department. And so because we had the existing non-reverting fund that we use more broadly for community-related investments, projects, programs, like our partnership with Habitat, which I think has done a great job in some of our community neighborhoods, we wanted to still be able to do that. So rather than just using our existing non-reverting fund to address this requirement in this House bill, we are going to create a second non-reverting fund to collect money moving forward so that we can preserve the money that's in the current fund and continue to use that for those community-related programs and investments, and then have a separate fund that's strictly and solely for the salaries that we need to do to meet these requirements. So that's what this does, is it creates a second non-reverting fund to collect fees moving forward in perpetuity, and then use those for salaries. So essentially what we'll do is when we get to budget time, what we'll do is look at the collections over the previous 12 months. Let's say it's $300,000. Then we'll have to create our budget and put what salaries we can coming out of that non-reverting fund. Then the rest of them will have to come out of the general fund. So we'll have to do that exercise every year based on how much money we collect from permit fees and make sure that we're using that money to pay salaries. And then that'll also allow us to preserve the money we have already collected and continue to use it for those community programs that have been so beneficial. So we did come up with a slightly revised name for this fund to try to differentiate it. We call this the Planning Department Fee Salary Fund to create a little bit of differentiation, so it's not to be confused with the one that we already have. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Question for Ben?
Did you say B like boy salary fund?
Fee
Oh,
with an
fee.
F,
Okay.
yeah. Planning Department Fee Salary Fund.
Any discussion between the council? Okay, Rob, you want to read it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Council Ordinance 2026-15, again, is an ordinance establishing a non-reverting fund for collection of planning department fees. This council now desires to establish a non-reverting Department of Planning and Zoning Fee Fund, an appropriation line item to provide for the collection and disbursements of revenue and appropriations as set forth in this ordinance. This council finds that the establishment of a planning department fee fund is established, and it's set forth in section 1. The funds deposited in the planning department fee fund may be utilized by the Department of Planning and Zoning Administration to pay annual department salaries for positions with responsibilities for processing an application, inspecting and reviewing applicants' plans, or preparing detailed statements for an applicant. The Planning Department fee fund shall be non-reverting, such that the balance of the fund will carry over from year to year and be available to the Department of Planning and Zoning as described herein, and this ordinance shall be in full force and effect in accordance with Indiana law.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, now it's time to open it up for the public hearing. If you have something you want to say. No? But you could have public. Okay, public comment. Anybody want to say a little something? Okay, seeing nobody stand up, we'll go ahead and, is there a motion to pass or, okay, ordinance 2026-15?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2026-15.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to new business. Resolution 2026-18, additional appropriation fund, 2506, non-reverting planning and zoning. Ben?
Thank you. So this is related to the new position that we discussed at the last meeting and was approved on first reading for the amendment to the salary ordinance. So thank you for the council for that. So this is the new assistant building commissioner position to help us with building inspections and all the projects we have going on. And so this now is the additional appropriation to pay salaries and benefits for the rest of 2026. And so worked with Tanya's office to figure out what the prorated salary was for the remainder of the year, along with the prorated benefits. And that equates to approximately $75,000 for the rest of the year. The fund that this will come out, at least for 2026, is from our existing non-reverting fund that we just talked about. And then likely will be coming out of the new non-reverting fund we just created next year. But for the remainder of this year, while there isn't money in the new fund, we will take it out of our existing non-reverting fund. So this does not affect the general fund balance in any way. It's from existing funds that are already in the non-reverting fund, rather than, and there's already money in the fund. We just need to appropriate it so we can spend it.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions for Ben?
We opened that up already for applicants, and if so, have we gotten any? Or?
So actually, we had a person interested in, I guess, in physically our office. He was actually Kevin's project manager. He was a building inspector previously. He was already interested in it, and now that we've actually started to get it approved and got the money appropriated for it, he is interested in coming back over to the planning department. So he already has experience working in our office, understands processes, has already been doing inspections for us. He's already certified as a residential building inspector, and would be able to get some of the additional certifications that would be beneficial to this job, as he'll be doing a lot more non-residential stuff. So luckily, where he was interested. Unfortunately, it means Kevin will be looking for a new project manager, but he will have time to be able to basically help both our office and Kevin's office in the time being.
Very good.
But yeah, he was definitely interested. I've already got an offer letter prepared for him as soon as we get the money appropriated.
Okay, thank you, Ben. We will have a public hearing for this, so if you would like to say, oh, you want to read it first?
I'll read it.
Oh, you want to read it first?
This is a resolution 2026-18. The City of Lebanon is duly formed municipal corporation within the state of Indiana. It's the duty and responsibility of the council to maintain fiscal integrity of the finances of the city. It's been determined it is now necessary to appropriate more money than was originally appropriated in the annual budget. All additional appropriations require a public hearing of which the council has served proper notice. Be it resolved and adopted by the city council of the city as follows. Appropriate funds will come from Fund 2506, non-reverting fund that Ben just talked about, for $75,000.
Thank you, Tanya. Now we'll have a public hearing. If you would like to say something, state your name, your address, and keep it to 3 minutes, please. All right, we'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from the council? All right, well, this is the first reading, so we'll take it up.
Resolution.
Oh, okay. All right, we're going to vote on it right now.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2026-18.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, next up, ordinance 2026-16, annexation of BT Smith Family LLC property. First reading.
Thank you. This is the first of a series of annexations by Brent Smith. This is a 100% voluntary annexation signed by a petition signed by the property owners of the property. This one in particular, if they want to go ahead and pull up the screen, this is, let me find my notes here, estimated addresses of 521 and 675 South, 225 West. So what you're seeing here to the east, these buildings are the Lebanon Business Park. This is Mount Zion Road here, and this is adjacent to existing city limits on the north and east sides of the property. The properties in this vicinity are, to the north are zoned LEAP, and everything to the east here is zoned light industrial. Actually, it's a mixture of light industrial and LEAP. This is a multi-step process. As you'll recall, this starts at the Plan Commission that holds a public hearing and then sends a recommendation on the zoning for the property to the council to consider as part of the annexation. And so this property, and I will have to probably exit out of this and zoom in so you can actually see where this property is located. You'll see it here on the southwest side of the city. This is actually within an industrial future land use category in our comprehensive plan. And one of the things that the Plan Commission does consider when assigning zoning is the comprehensive plan designation in order to assign the zoning. This does not mean projects are ready to start building on this property. This merely assigns the zoning to provide guidance on the uses that would be permitted. If anybody's interested in developing this property in the future, they would still have to file plans with our department, and there'd be appropriate public hearings associated with that. So this really just sets up the appropriate uses and zoning to assign to the property. And so the Plan Commission did forward a recommendation to assign the light industrial zoning classification to this property. It was an 8-0 vote on that. And then in terms of the next steps, this will be the first reading of the annexation ordinance this evening and a public hearing associated with that annexation. And then at the next meeting would be the second reading of the annexation ordinance, potential adoption. And in addition, we'll also present a fiscal plan associated with the annexations at the next meeting. So after that, assuming adoption at the next meeting, then there's a 30-day waiting period before it becomes effective. So again, this is a 100% voluntary annexation by the BT Smith family, petition signed by Brent Smith. Again, it comes with a recommendation for the light industrial zoning classification from the Plan Commission. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions for Ben?
How many acres does this entail?
Let me see if I have it. I wanted to say this one is like 30 acres, give or take. I don't think I have the number here in my notes here, but I want to say that it was roughly 30 or 40 acres.
On the paper you just showed us, was it that yellow square?
Yeah. So this is obviously the entire city future land use map. I'll zoom in further. It's this little yellow square here down at the southwest. It was identified when we did the comprehensive plan a couple of years ago as the industrial designation. It's right there kind of on the perimeter of the business park in the LEAP district.
Okay, any more questions? All right, we'll open up for the public hearing. Oh, you go ahead and read it, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Council Ordinance 2026-16, again, is an ordinance annexing certain territory to the city of Lebanon, whereas, as Ben indicated, 100% of the owners of the parcels proposed for annexations are identified in Exhibits A and B. That's defined as the annexation area. Filed a voluntary petition with this council pursuant to Indiana Code. The Lebanon Advisory Plan Commission held a public hearing on May 18th and forwarded docket 26-19 to this council with a favorable recommendation 8-0 to assign the light industrial zoning classification for the annexation area. This council shall conduct a public hearing momentarily as required by Indiana law, and it shall adopt a fiscal plan as well as required by Indiana law. This council finds that the annexation area is hereby declared annexed to and to be declared a part of the city of Lebanon. It's further to include the contiguous public highways and rights-of-ways of the public highways, which are adjacent to the annexation area, and it is assigned Council District 2. Again, it's going to be assigned also light industrial zoning classification, and upon annexation, the annexation area shall be made part of the water and wastewater civil rate districts, and this ordinance shall be in full force and effect in accordance with Indiana law.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, now we'll open up for a public hearing. So if you'd like to say something, state your name, your address, and keep it to 3 minutes, please. All right. Close the public hearing. Thank you, Rob, and we'll take this up June 8th. Next up, ordinance 2026-17, annexation of BT Smith Family LLC at 1655 North, 500 West. First reading.
Thank you. So as I mentioned previously, we have a series of 3 annexations by the BT Smith family, petitions filed by Brent Smith as a representative of that family. This property, as Mr. Kincaid mentioned, is at the estimated address of 1655 North 500 West, as you see here highlighted on the map. This is at the western end of the current city limits. The Meta project site ends about right here, just a little bit east of the project site. Actually, their contractor Mortensen is going to be establishing a temporary laydown yard on this 80 acres that you see here. So this is adjacent to the existing city limits on the eastern side. Again, there's no project that's proposed for this site. This is merely an annexation by the family to get it into the city and get it appropriate zoning. And then that would allow, now once it's in city's jurisdiction, for potential projects to move forward if and or when there is one in the future. Again, similar to the last one, the Plan Commission held a public hearing at their last meeting to consider a potential recommendation for zoning. And again, I will zoom in because this, while slightly bigger than the last one, is still fairly small in terms of the overall city. This one, as you can see, is in the middle of the future land use designation for the LEAP district, which is this dark purple. All of the properties adjacent to the east are also zoned for the LEAP district. And so the Plan Commission, in consideration of the comprehensive plan, did forward a recommendation to assign the LEAP zoning classification to this parcel. And that was a 7-1 vote at their last meeting. So again, this is a multi-step process. This would be the first reading and public hearing tonight on the annexation ordinance. Next meeting would be a fiscal plan and adoption, and then 30-day waiting period. So again, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
What is this parcel zoned at right now?
I believe it's ag right now in the county.
Is that the same with the other one too?
I believe so, yes.
How many acres?
This one I think is closer to 50 acres. It's a little bit bigger than the last one.
Okay, thank you. Rob, you want to read it, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. Council Ordinance 2026-17, again, is an ordinance annexing certain territory to the city of Lebanon. Again, as been indicated, 100% of the owners of the parcels proposed for annexations are identified in Exhibits A and B, that's defined as the annexation area, have filed a voluntary petition with this council pursuant to Indiana law. The City of Lebanon Advisory Plan Commission held a public hearing at its meeting on May 18, 2026, and forwarded docket 26-20 to this council with a favorable recommendation 7-1 to assign the LEAP zoning classification for the annexation area. This council shall conduct a public hearing momentarily as required by Indiana law and shall adopt a fiscal plan for the annexation of the annexation area as well. This council finds that the annexation area is hereby declared annexed to and declared to be a part of the city of Lebanon. It's further to include the contiguous public highways and rights-of-ways of the public highways which are adjacent to the annexation area. The annexation area is assigned Council District 3, and it's also assigned the LEAP zoning classification. Council declares upon annexation, the annexation areas shall be made a part of the water and wastewater LEAP rate districts, and this ordinance shall be in full force and effect in accordance with Indiana law.
Thank you, Rob. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing for ordinance 2026-17. Please state your name, address, and keep it to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Hine, and I live at 1495 North, 500 West, where I've resided for over 2 decades. I am here tonight to oppose the voluntary annexation of the 53.6 acres into the city and into the LEAP district. My objections remain unchanged since I spoke at the May 18, 2026 public hearing. As an immediate neighbor, our home and neighborhood are already bearing the heavy burdens of the ongoing Meta project. The structural flaw in the current LEAP ordinances is that they were written exclusively for the end state, governing permanent layouts after a project is completed. Because the city has failed to establish clear enforceable regulations for active ongoing construction phases, developers are permitted to operate 24/7. We are currently subjected to relentless noise and invasive stadium lighting that has completely stripped us of our quiet enjoyment of our own property. Property that I'd like to remind you we've paid property taxes on for over 2 decades. When we report these disruptions, we are told officials are trying, but it is clear that the standard city protections are either not being applied or not being enforced. Absorbing another 53.6 acres into the LEAP district directly adjacent to my residence without fixing these active regulatory gaps compounds an already unbearable situation. Compounding this risk, the staff report explicitly states the petitioner has no proposed concept plan. Approving this expansion blindly without a concrete proposal is irresponsible. It deprives surrounding homeowners of the ability to assess how their safety, environment, and property values will be impacted. I urge you to look at this from the viewpoint of the families who built their lives here. None of you would willingly subject your own families or children to this level of disruption and uncertainty. I urge you to deny this annexation, or at the very least, table it until a definite use plan is established and comprehensive enforcement instruction phase regulations are legally enforced to protect our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. You mentioned 53 acres?
It's projected at 53.6 acres.
With the way it's set up, the 53 acres they're talking about, is that going to be closer to your property?
Yes.
It will be closer to
It
you
is-
guys?
I can open up my garage door and walk to it.
That's how close it'll be?
It is how close part of this property is.
Okay.
There are many established residents on 500 West that this 54 acres is going to butt up to their properties.
Okay,
Not
thank you.
just mine. I'm just the one that's willing to come here and oppose it.
Thank you.
Ben? Oh, is there anybody else want to talk? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. And Ben, could you respond to that from your department?
Yeah, I guess just a couple of things about, and Rob can fill in some of the gaps if I miss something about Indiana law as it relates to a 100% voluntary annexation like this. The council's required by Indiana law to consider the annexation in a timely fashion. I can't remember what the timing is. I think it's like 45 or 60 days. You're required to consider the annexation, and they actually have the ability, if the council doesn't require it in a timely fashion according to Indiana statute, to go to the courts and have the courts essentially make the annexation official. So, so there are some limitations. You really don't have the ability to table it. You're required to hear it within a certain time period. So there is some of that. And obviously, we're very aware that there are adjacent neighbors out here. There are adjacent neighbors in a number of places where in the county where there are city properties adjacent. The LEAP district was set up to have significant buffers and setbacks from existing properties to make sure that they are properly protected. Certainly, we are still working on construction sites to improve those, and I know Meta in particular is looking at a number of different ways that they can provide additional protections for neighbors such as the Hine family, and are doing so as we speak. So it's an ongoing process, as was mentioned, to try to correct that. I think what was brought up is that right now, and it's actually a noise regulation that limits construction to only daytime hours, but the restriction is only in residential districts or within 500 feet of a residential district. This is not a residential district. This is a LEAP. It's a non-residential LEAP district. So there are not limitations for construction. They can work 24/7 based on code that's been in place for a significant amount of time in the city of Lebanon. So absent a change to city code, they are permitted to work 24/7. Very similar, actually. I looked up a couple places. Whitestown, just to our south, has the exact same requirements. You're actually able to work 24/7 down in Whitestown as well. So I did a little bit of research to see how other communities, our direct adjacent neighbor has the exact same regulations we do. So yes, there are some growing pains out there. Absolutely, no doubt, no argument there. We're working on a number of different ways to try to address and remediate some of the construction-related pain that's going on out there. and certainly willing to discuss with the mayor and council if there are other things we'd like to consider moving forward in the future. We are enforcing the laws as they are applied right now.
So we'd have to change city code to only allow them to work, 16 hours a day?
Yeah, if that was the will of the council, it's a legislative change to city code, just like every other, all ordinances. It would be an ordinance to amend city code to restrict to daytime hours. I think in residential areas, it's 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., I believe, are the hours that are restricted in the residential areas, but there's not a restriction outside of residential districts. That's something certainly we could discuss. If that was the will of the council to discuss that, we'd be happy to do that with you.
And you said 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Does that include weekends also, or not?
It's 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. all days.
All days?
Yeah,
Even Sunday?
that's my yeah. It's 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. all 7 days a week.
We might have to take a look at that then.
That's something, sure, if it was the will of the council
Well,
to
I've
discuss
driven out
that.
there. I stay on top of this, and I drive out there all the time, and those lights are terrible,
I think the one thing that I guess for the council to consider is if they're not allowed to work at night, then that probably adds about 40% to the length of time it'll take for construction to occur. So it just means the construction pain will be extended out to quite a bit longer time if they're not working out at night. But I guess, again, if the council thinks that that's worthy consideration, we should probably sit down and discuss that at a work session.
There's always a consequence to any change. Okay. Thank you, Ben.
That we should consider, though.
Oh, we can talk about it. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, just let me know, and I'll do some additional research on how other communities address it. Obviously, these are very unique construction projects that are happening here. There's not a whole lot of them that are at this scale around the state, but we can do a little bit more research, see how other communities are addressing that might have projects like this, and see if there's something that's kind of an industry standard that we can look at.
So the timeline for Meta construction to be done, completed,
I don't know that I have a definitive. I think we're probably right now looking at still at least a couple years, probably 2 to 3 years before they're done with construction on the 5 phases that they have planned.
Thank you.
Bob, I have a question. They talked about it's not currently zoned or going to be zoned for a while. Is that correct?
No, I think, just to reiterate, first of all, and this is first reading, so no action is going to be taken tonight.
It's just a question.
The zoning is, what the Plan Commission forwarded to this council with a 7-1 favorable recommendation is to use the LEAP zoning classification. So that's what, there's already been a public hearing at the Plan Commission, and that's what's in this ordinance, and what, at the next meeting, what you would take action on.
Yeah, in county jurisdiction, it's zoned as ag. So one thing we did discuss at the Plan Commission, there's a series of options in terms of the recommendation for the Plan Commission. One, if there is a concept plan that the applicant has provided, they could consider a zoning based on the concept plan. That actually doesn't have to follow the comprehensive plan. It could be any zoning classification in the city if there's a concept plan that supports it. Or there's 2 other things that could be considered. One is a Plan Commission could consider the future land use designation in the comprehensive plan, which is what they did in this case, and it is part of the LEAP future land use designation. If the other option would be just to assign the default zoning classification, which in our case is R1, the residential zoning classification. We do not have an agricultural zoning district. So that would be the other option that could be considered, and then that would allow it to be annexed under our default residential zoning classification. If at some point in the future then there is a project related to LEAP that came forward, then they could request the zoning change at that time. But that is another option to be considered. The Plan Commission chose to consider the future land use designation from the comprehensive plan and recommend the LEAP zoning classification.
Anything else from the council?
No, sir.
Okay. Up next, Ben again. Ordinance 2026-18, annexation of Brent Smith Family Shelter Trust property.
All right. Annexations that have been filed by Brent Smith. This one is on the south end of the LEAP district. Estimated address of, whoops, got the wrong piece of paper here, so I probably should read the correct one. 502 South 300 West, as again, you can see it's adjacent to existing city limits on the north end of the property. Again, process-wise, this was at the Plan Commission last week for a public hearing to provide a recommendation for a zoning classification. And again, I will flip to the second page and then zoom in. So this is actually at the edge of when we did the comprehensive plan a few years ago, at the edge of the LEAP district. This one, usually when you do a comprehensive plan, you look at about a 5 to 10 year development horizon. We really felt like that this was really outside of what we expected in that 5 to 10 year development horizon. We usually leave that under an ag zoning classification, or an ag future land use designation. And so in this case, because this is in an area we hadn't contemplated for the LEAP district or industrial or anything like that, the Plan Commission considered our default zoning classification of residential R1, and that was the recommendation that was forwarded to the council at a vote of 8-0 to assign the residential R1 zoning classification. Again, this is a 100% voluntary annexation. It is adjacent to current city limits in order to be annexed. So. Again, happy to answer any questions if there are any on this one. And this one is 80 acres.
Thank you.
Questions for Ben?
You said this one is R1 right now?
This one is ag right now in the county jurisdiction. We would bring it on our default zoning classification, which is residential R1. That is our highest residential classification in the city.
I'm sorry, Ben, on the future land use map that you had put up there a couple times, you put up 3 different sites. Do you have a map showing all 3 on that map?
I don't have them on one map, but I could highlight where they are on the map so you can kind of get an idea where they are in relation to each other. Let me zoom in just a little bit further. So this is this third one here that you see highlighted in yellow. The first one was on 225 West, just right in this area, a little bit east of the site. And the one on 500 is approximately in this area here at the western end of the LEAP district.
They don't connect to each other?
They do not, which is why they're 3 separate annexations, because they're not contiguous to each other.
Thank you.
Rob?
Thank you, Mr. President. Council Ordinance 2026-18 is again an ordinance annexing certain territory to the city of Lebanon, whereas 100% of the owners of the parcels proposed for annexations, which is identified in Exhibits A and B, the annexation area, have filed a voluntary petition with this council pursuant to Indiana law. City of Lebanon Advisory Plan Commission held a public hearing at its meeting on May 18th, 2026, and forwarded docket 26-21 to this council with a favorable recommendation 8-0 to assign the residential R1 zoning classification for the annexation area. This council shall conduct a public hearing momentarily as required by Indiana law and shall adopt the fiscal plan for the annexation of the annexation area. This council finds that the annexation area is declared annexed to and declared to be a part of the city of Lebanon. The annexation area is further to include the contiguous public highways and rights-of-ways of the public highways which are adjacent to the annexation area. The annexation area is assigned Council District 2 and again assigned the residential R1 zoning classification. And upon annexation, the annexation area shall be made part of the water and wastewater civil rate districts. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect in accordance with Indiana law.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open up for the public hearing. If you have something to say, please state your name, address. No movement, we'll close the public hearing and take this up at our next meeting, June 8th.
I have one more question. Two of these parcels are in the LEAP, considered LEAP rate district, or else two of them are in and one of them's in the civil.
So
Or is it vice versa?
one was in LEAP, this one out on 500 West was assigned to the LEAP water wastewater rate district. And then the other two, this one that you see here, and then the one that was over here to the east, those are both in the civil rate district. They were outside of what was designated the LEAP.
Both of them?
Yeah, these are both in the civil district here on the south end because they're outside of the LEAP district.
Okay.
Any more questions for Ben? All righty, thank you, Ben. All right, next up, ordinance 2026-19, County Road 400 West vacation request, first reading, followed by a public hearing.
Document here. Right. So this is the second phase of vacation request associated with the Meta construction site. If you will recall, they have about a 1,500-acre construction site. I'll say 2/3 of it is north of existing State Road 32, and about the remaining third of it is south of existing State Road 32. And so if you recall, a year and a half ago or so, we did vacate 400 West, the segment that you see here highlighted in red. Where'd my cursor go? Here we go. The segment you see highlighted here in red that runs through the north end of their construction site, that was vacated about a year and a half ago. And they had indicated at that time that at some point when they move into the future regions that are on the south side of State Road 32, particularly once construction of the new State Road 32 alignment is moving forward, they would be coming back to request the remaining segment of 400 West that essentially runs from existing State Road 32 to the north down to the new State Road 32 alignment to the south. And so two things are happening. One is that construction of that new alignment of State Road 32 is underway and is expected to be open for traffic by the end of this year. And then the other thing that is happening is Meta is accelerating their construction timeline so that they can move forward on what would be Region 4 and 5 in this area sooner and get it done sooner. And so they are coming in now to request the vacation of these additional rights-of-way associated with 400 West. And actually the next item on the agenda would be for 300 West further to the east. And so that is the requests for you here tonight, is to vacate this existing segment of 400 West, essentially between existing State Road 32 and new State Road 32. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any houses there that are going to be affected by this?
Not on this segment. So there are some, let me see if there are some houses to the south. And let me see. So we kind of highlighted this again. The segment is here in red. This blue line represents the new alignment of State Road 32. There's a series of houses that are down here about a half a mile south on 400 West. Their primary routes would then be 50 south over to 500 West, which is just off the map here, or 50 south over here to 200 West and up to 32. So they do have two ways to get from their house to 32, either to go west or east. My understanding is, while it's not closed, NDOT is working on construction in this area, and there are some temporary partial closures as they're doing some work in these areas already. So there's already some times where there's restricted access to this segment, depending on what NDOT's doing in terms of the construction of the new State Road 32.
And what you're talking about, is it the red line right there inside
Yes.
that yellow?
Yes, this red line, yeah, the yellow is the outline of the Meta construction site. In total, the red segment is the 400 West segment we're talking about vacating with this ordinance, which would be this segment kind of on the south part of their property.
And there's no houses in that area?
There are no, well, there is a physical house there, but there's no residents in it. Yeah, so there are no residents that live along that segment.
Any more questions? Okay, Rob?
Thank you, Mr. President. Council Ordinance 2026-19 concerns an ordinance of this council to vacate public ways. Whereas there's been filed with the City of Lebanon Plan Commission petition docket number 26-27 to vacate approximately 1,650 feet of assumed right-of-way associated with County Road 400 West between existing State Road 32 to the north and new State Road 32 alignment to the south. That's defined as real estate, and it's described in Exhibits A, B, C, and D. The Plan Commission voted 8-0 to send a favorable recommendation to this council for consideration. Therefore, this council finds, pursuant to Indiana law, has the authority to vacate public rights-of-ways and now finds that the public right-of-way identified in Exhibits A, B, C, and D are no longer needed for the benefit of the public. After duly advertised and published public hearing pursuant to Indiana law, this council finds it's proper and necessary to vacate the public right-of-way identified in Exhibits A, B, C, and D. The conveyance of the real estate described in Exhibits A and B shall be to Orla LLC, and the real estate identified in Exhibits C and D shall be to Brent and Tricia Smith. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect in accordance with Indiana law.
Thank you, Rob. We'll take this up at our next meeting, June 8th. Open up for public hearing. If you want to say something, state your name, address. All right, thank you. Close the public hearing. Ordinance 2026-20, County Road 300 West, vacation request.
Right, so this is essentially the same conversation we just had, except for 300 West. So we'll pull this map back up. So there is the segment of 400 West we discussed here, the highlight in blue, and this is the segment of 300 West, this little segment that's between essentially the curve on State Road 32 and then 25 north that you see here. So again, this is a segment that will be in the middle of the Meta site, and with the new construction of State Road 32 alignment at the south end of this area, Meta will now be extending some of their construction activities into this area that's south of existing State Road 32. So they're now coming in to request the vacation of this right-of-way here associated with 300 West. And again, we'll go back to this segment here. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it a little bit better again, kind of looking at existing. So there is a group of homes here on 300 West that is just south of this area. And again, so their routes in terms of, in the short term until State Road 32 is complete later this year, would be to head south on 300 West and then use 50 to get over to 200, or if they're heading west, use 50 to get over 500. So again, while it's not necessarily a convenient route to get around, they do have ways to get around, at least a couple different ways to get around what would be the closure. But again, there's so much construction happening in this area right now. I know that little segment of 300 West is occasionally closed for construction already. And they do have a couple of different ways to get both west and east and around what would be the construction area.
The properties there, have they been notified?
Well, some of them may have gotten direct notification, but most of them are outside of the required 300 feet boundary around that area. But they either would have been able to see the notice about this in the paper, or we do also post information about this on the calendars on our website.
More questions for Ben? All right, Rob?
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, this ordinance 2026-20 is an ordinance to vacate certain public ways, whereas there was filed before the City of Lebanon Plan Commission docket 26-28 to vacate approximately 800 feet of assumed right-of-way associated with County Road 300 West between existing State Road 32 to the north and new State Road 32 alignment to the south that's defined as real estate in Exhibits A and B. The Plan Commission voted 8-0 to send a favorable recommendation of this council for consideration. This council finds that pursuant to Indiana law, it has the authority to vacate public rights-of-ways and now finds the public right-of-way identified in Exhibits A and B is no longer needed for the benefit of the public. After a duly advertised and published public hearing pursuant to Indiana law, the council finds it's proper and necessary to vacate the public right-of-ways identified in Exhibits A and B. The conveyance of the real estate described in Exhibits A and B shall be to Orla LLC, and this ordinance shall be in full force and effect in accordance with Indiana law.
Thank you, Rob. This time we'll open up for the public hearing. State your name, address. Okay, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll take us up June 8th. Next up, Resolution 2026-19, approving additional designated permittees within the Lebanon Downtown Dora District.
Promise this is my last one. All right, so just a little quick history. The DORA, which was adopted via ordinance by the council in December of last year, established the boundaries of that district, which is the designated outdoor refreshment area, and then also identified a series of designated permittees within that area that wanted to be part of the DORA district. And then that ordinance also established a process by which the council could add additional designated permittees to the DORA, and that is via a resolution. So we actually had, there were already a couple of restaurants that were identified that wanted to be added to the DORA, but while we were in the middle of getting the DORA established and then approved by the ATC, we didn't really want to muddy the process. So we wanted to wait until after the DORA was approved by ATC, which just happened about a week and a half ago. And so now we're coming back and wanting to add a couple of designated permittees to the DORA, and this would be for Arnie's and Chabella's, which is a new restaurant in the Boone County Jail, Old Boone County Jail. So those would be, this resolution, what it would do is essentially just add, or the council would be approving 2 additional designated permittees in Arnie's and Chabella's to the DORA. From this point then, once this resolution is theoretically approved, then our office would then submit their applications along with this resolution to the ATC to get them formally added and approved as part of the DORA district. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ben? Okay, Rob?
Thank you, Mr. President. Council Resolution 2026-19, again, has been indicated, is a resolution of this council approving additional designated permittees within the Lebanon downtown designated outdoor refreshment area, which is described as DORA. I won't rehash everything that Ben went through, but this council would find that it would recommend and approve the designation of the applicants as designated permittees within the downtown DORA, subject to the approval of the same by the ATC. They're authorized to submit a copy of this resolution 2026-19 with their applications to the ATC as evidenced by this council's approval. To the extent necessary, this council authorizes the city's planning department to submit a copy of this resolution 2026-19, the applications and the DORA ordinance to the ATC in connection with the applications. Upon receipt of the approval of the application by the ATC, a copy of which must be submitted to the city's planning department, each of the applicants shall be considered and permitted to operate as a designated permittee within the downtown DORA, subject to all requirements, laws, terms, and provisions set forth in the DORA ordinance and in accordance with Indiana law. This resolution shall be in full force and effect upon its adoption by this council.
Thank you, Rob.
Question. Is the map that we submitted to the ATC, does it go west on Washington Street that it would cover Arnie's? I didn't know how far west it went.
Let me see if I can get to it, because I did have to help Missy put together a map for the ATC.
I was just trying to remember the original map we put together, and when Arnie's wasn't on the original.
Yeah, so the boundaries.
Had to be extended if Arnie's was to be included.
So the boundaries would have included their site, but they just weren't a designated permittee in that original ordinance. And let me see, which one did I put together here? I think it's this one maybe. So this is the map of the DORA boundaries. So you can see here's Arnie's.
Okay.
So the boundaries are the red line.
Yep.
But we had just the 4 designated permittees in the original ordinance, the distillery, the chop house, Clues Brews, and Boone County Cake Company. So they are already within the boundaries of the DORA. They just need to be added as a designated permittee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, we are open up for public comment. If someone wants to say anything about this. All right, we're closing the public comment, and I would entertain a motion for Resolution 2026-19.
I would make a motion that we approve Resolution 2026-19 with the addition of 2 new permit locations.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay. He's a no.
Yes, the 2 business
Thank you. All right. Last thing on the agenda, IDD pass-through determination approval. Rob?
Thank you, Mr. President, Council. So this, what we're asking the council to consider is something, it's new in the statute with the Innovation Development Districts, the IDD, as it was a newly enacted statute by the Indiana legislature in 2023.
Hey, Rob, could you tell the folks at home what IDD is?
Yeah, the Innovation Development District, or in short, IDD.
Okay.
So far, the city had, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation designated the LEAP, LP1, LP2 as the first LEAP Lebanon IDD that's been established. As this council, some of the council are members on the Redevelopment Commission. There's a similar process in Indiana law that where there's statutory requirements to consider whether the Redevelopment Commission would pass any excess tax increment financing or TIF revenue to overlapping tax districts. We work with the city's financial advisor, municipal advisor, Baker Tilly, in that process. In talking with Baker Tilly and looking at the statute, while there's not a necessary requirement for this council to make a determination with an IDD, we just would recommend to this council, in talking with the mayor and Baker Tilly, agreeing that we would ask this council to consider making a resolution that there's no excess assessed value that may be allocated to any overlapping taxing districts that would be involving this IDD allocation area. And then we would ask that determination be made and then authorize the mayor to issue a letter to those respective taxing units, as well as the respective county offices, just so there's no ambiguity in this process. Again, we're still working with the IEDC to get whatever distribution that the city may obtain. And again, without getting too much into the weeds, there's a proportionate 12% share that they're working on determining. The city hasn't received anything yet, and so we're hopeful that we'll have more information yet this year. But there is a time limit with the Redevelopment Commission that's in June 15th, and we just thought it would be prudent to, again, so there's no ambiguity, just let everybody know that that's what we're doing with respect to this IDD allocation area. Again, this is fairly new. This is one of the first in the states, and so we're just working our way through that process. So the ask would be by this council, again, that it would be a motion that there would be no excess assessed value that may be allocated to the overlapping taxing units in the manners prescribed by Indiana law, and it would authorize the mayor to execute a letter and to be sent on behalf of the city conveying that.
We're not doing a resolution on it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Motion
Just a motion.
and a vote.
And a vote.
And it's define that
Yeah, it would be a
definition again.
motion again that the council determines that no excess assessed value may be allocated to the overlapping taxing units in the manner prescribed, and it'd be in Indiana Code 36714-39. And to authorize the mayor to send a letter basically following that direction.
So what does this get us if we do this?
I'm sorry?
What does this do for us?
Well, we believe that it's, what it would do is, to the extent that the city receives any allocation of from the IDD, from the 12% proportionate value, that the city would capture it essentially, and it wouldn't pass it out to any of the other taxing units, okay? So, to date, the city has not received anything. We don't know what that amount would be, but this is all related to, again, the Eli Lilly, which was formerly Project Grasslands, or LP1, LP2. provision. This has nothing to do with the Eli Lilly Medicine Foundry or Project Matrix site, okay? I know it's complicated. We're just believe that this would be prudent, again, to follow a similar path that the Redevelopment Commission does. It has certain mandatory statutory rules. This is not mandatory, but we believe that it would be prudent and recommended, meaning that the city is going to capture the full 12% to the extent that it gets it of whatever share it may be. Does that make sense?
It does. This is guaranteeing us our 12% what we were promised of the property taxes.
Yeah,
Does it make
the
it pay
real
any
and
quicker?
personal property, whatever real and personal property taxes may be provided by the IEDC to the city, and Tanya is involved in that as well with Baker Tilly. We just haven't received anything yet.
It's from LP1 and LP2 only. Correct. Okay. So do I have a motion?
Motion so moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Rob. That was a mouthful. Okay. Have a motion to pay the claims?
I make a motion, we pay the claims.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. We are adjourned, and we will see you at the next meeting, June 8th. Thank you.